Welcome to Building Healthy Relationships, the 4 Habits podcast, helping you enjoy better harmony at home, thrive at work, and win at life. Here are your hosts, Dr. Andrea and Jon Taylor-Cummings, recognized authorities on the subjects of improving work relationships and cultures, as well as couple and home relationships.
Hello and welcome back, friends. Today, as you'll have seen from the title, we're going to be looking at 7 mistakes that most couples make and how to avoid them for greater harmony at home.
Yep, so we're talking about home relationships
today. That's the focus.
In particular.
What things are doing, what you're doing that isn't working so well.
And, you know, it's such an important conversation because in our 30 years of working with relationships, we've never come across anybody who on purpose wanted to destroy their relationships.
Why would you?
Exactly. So, the thing is, when we share what the 7 are, it will seem kind of obvious, but unless you become conscious that these are things that you're doing, we'll end up doing them unintentionally and damage relationships. Isn't that right?
And absolutely. And this is having looked at thousands of relationships now. We've seen a common pattern. So we thought it might be interesting to share those top 7 with you so that you too can avoid those, stay away from them, and enjoy greater harmony at home. So Andrew, why don't you kick us off with number 1?
With number 1. Well, I'm not sure that all 7 are in order of priority,
totally
but I think number 1 is definitely,
right up there.
definitely up there. Definitely number 1. And that is, we think our spouse is a mind reader. We literally think they're in our heads. And we expect them to think or behave or react the way that we would and get really, or know exactly how they should respond and get really upset when they don't. And we might not be conscious about it, but I guess what we really think is they actually know what they should do or say, and they're choosing not to just to irritate us. You know, we might think that our spouse or our partner lies in bed at night trying to find a way to annoy us the next day because that's what they seem to do. And the thing is, they're not in our heads. You know, we know they're different. We want them to be different on paper or logically. We want them to be different. Yeah. But we just assume that they will get us and know what to do. And if they love us, they should know what to do and do it. And the busier we are, that, you know, when you become really time poor, you just need things to work go by clockwork. And the problem is it's only to your clock. And that's not necessarily a shared understanding of what clockwork looks like. So one of the biggest problems in relationships is that we assume our partner is in our head and there are things that we need to communicate or need to be more deliberate in talking about that we don't. And that causes problems because we get upset when they don't do what we think they should know. Yeah. Because they love us.
Absolutely. So number 1, don't get it out of your head that they're in your head. They're not. They're different. But then the second thing that we do, a lot of us, is we criticize, we undermine, we disrespect different approaches. One, somebody does something different to us. We think, why did they do that for you? We might mutter, you silly so-and-so or whatever. The things that we think, what do you do that for? This is the right way. I know certainly in our relationship back in the day, our experiences.
All right, talking truth now.
Talking truth coming up here. Certainly when Andrew would take a different approach to mine, I knew, in my head, I knew my way was the right way. Sorry, arrogance, you would say. But that was how I just saw it. This is the right way to do things. What are you doing it that way? This is I used to say, I still say sometimes, she has some funny ways of doing things.
And she still does.
She still has some funny ways of doing things. It's just a different approach. But if you go in with the mindset of, mine is right, yours is a funny way of doing things, that's not helpful for the relationship because you will communicate that to them and you end up disrespecting their approach, their way of doing things.
It's the narrative that you end up with in your head about that person. You know, whether it's, you know, the first mistake where people you assume they're in their heads, if they should know what to do, therefore they should do it the way you see it.
Absolutely.
And then when they don't, you start telling yourself things about who they are and why they're doing what they're doing. And that's the narrative that can lead us down a dangerous path. And for us, it was the criticism that led to. That was a real problem. I think, did we share it? I think we shared in a previous podcast.
We did share in a previous episode.
About the Gottmans and the research that they did to show that criticism is one of those danger signs that can,
slippery slope.
Yeah, the habits that can really damage the relationship. Yeah. And we slip into it so easily. And criticism, the other danger sign is contempt, and the two are really...
Well, criticism can lead you to contempt and take you down that slippery slope to it.
And that's when, you kind of roll your eyes and, oh, there we go again, or what an idiot. You might not say it out loud, but it's this sense of superiority, oh, that's so stupid. Why did they do that? And we need to catch ourselves when we're having those thoughts. I was reading a book. I wanted to find it before this podcast, but couldn't put my hand on it, by Edgar Schein, who said that
I remember that name from a long time back. Wow.
And he was talking about, what's missing in leadership now. And he was saying that in couple relationships in particular, it's not so much, the problem isn't creating the unity as much as it is being more respectful of the separateness. And sometimes in a couple relationship, we don't respect the difference, and we don't leave space for people to turn up in that difference, and we don't create enough separateness. We just become this imposing blend of, you need to do things more like me, or I need to do things more like you, and that is problem number 2. Not respecting
the difference and respecting it is just so important. I think we shared in an earlier episode, I remember us doing that, about, we gave the example of us, our differences with the diamonds. Where I said in a previous episode, I think Andrea is a fantastic diamond miner. She can go into the mines and find great diamonds and bring them back. Pretty rubbish at polishing them. And she knows that. I'm not telling stories out of school. She knows that.
Not interested
in polishing
Somebody else can work with the detail.
Gem, put it out there. Guys, take it and do something with it. Whereas I'm much better, and again, not blowing my own horn or trumpet too loud here, much better at polishing. I can get it to that point where it actually looks great to look at it. But I'm not so good at actually going to the mine and finding the biggest of the diamonds. I can find some and they'll be okay, but they may not be the fantastic diamonds.
So that was a metaphor that you used to explain the difference between my big vision thinking and your attention to detail thinking. And when we get it together, when we figured out what was going on, it creates amazing teamwork. And we know that even if it's frustrating, making space for the different approaches, that what we'll create is a lot better when we bring both our strengths rather than when we ignore one or the other.
So the key is identifying the differences and then looking for the strength in the difference and then respecting that. That's the kind of journey that you need to go on. Because once you can respect that difference, then you're no longer dissing it or disrespecting it. Because now actually you can see what the value is in it. So you're no longer treating it, this is second to mine and this is not as good. This is actually something that's pretty good over here, so I'm going to respect that.
Yeah.
And that is really number key. So the key thing to avoid in this space is not getting to that stage, still criticizing it. And that's a big mistake of criticizing those things, because it can tend to cripple the other person. They then have negative vibes towards you, and it can kind of just start to tear the relationship apart. So really, really important to not do that well.
And the key solution to that is to really invest the time to understand the other person.
Absolutely.
And understand the strengths, the difference, the approach, the mindset, rather than judging it, understanding it and making space for them to have a different perspective and knowing how to work through that.
Absolutely.
That takes skill, because that's not our default approach. We're so much at the center of our own world.
Wish it was.
So much at the center of our own world. What about, they're not in our heads is the first one. We need to stop criticizing and respect differences. What would you say the third one is?
I think the third one is around us sweeping things under the carpet, not having those conversations, taking really important things and actually saying, you know what, this thing is, it's important, but, for either I'm too busy or for a peaceful life or whatever it is, I won't talk about that. That one is a mistake, because not talking about it just leads to frustrations. You'll end up building things up on the inside, and it could erupt and come out somewhere down the road.
But we need to talk a little deeper about this one, because usually people don't or hesitate to talk about things or sweep things under the carpet when it feels a little bit too difficult to either broach the topic. And typical examples would be different of opinion about how to deal with money or parenting styles, or the role in-laws should play, how involved they should be, or even roles and responsibilities in the home. Quite often they have a lot of emotion attached to it, maybe a lot of assumptions about the right way to be, and to bring it up and want to change things could challenge those deep-seated emotions around them.
Yeah.
So it's easier to not go there.
Or you've tried having those conversations in the past and they just haven't gone so well. So the pain comes back, the painful memory of those conversations, like, you know what, I don't want to have that conversation again. Yeah. I'm going to leave it. But that doesn't mean it's resolved. No way, Jose, as they say.
Shall we tell the story about us with chores and when our roles changed? Because, okay, we're talking truth today.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for a long while, about 15 years, John was the main breadwinner, going out working in the city, and I ran a business from home while looking after
around being the main caregiver.
Trial rearing as the main caregiver. Yeah. And then in 2017, when we started this business full time, we were both working on the business full time all day, and then I would just slip back into that role of main caregiver or doing the laundry and the cooking and the so on in the evening. So it's like I had two jobs. And we tried to have the conversation a couple of times and it didn't go really well. And it was a mixture of things bubbling on the inside of me, because on one hand, I was saying, if any good homemaker or good Christian woman should be able to juggle all these things and not complain about it. But on the other hand, I was feeling resentful that we were working neck and neck during the day and I was kind of left on my own to deal with all the house stuff in the evening.
Yeah. And whereas from my side, you had always done those things. We hadn't had a conversation about it. You seemed happy to keep doing it, so I was quite happy to let you.
Yeah.
At least that's what I'd say.
Yeah. So we had to.
It wasn't like that. It was what was happening in the background, of course.
Yeah. So the resentment was building, and we attempted the conversation a couple of times, but finally got to the point to hear each other's heart. Because ultimately, if you want to be able to give mutual support and really be there for each other, talking about the things that need to be done and how you will divvy things up differently in a different season of life is really important. And sometimes we just don't have those conversations and the resentment just builds. I know this is one of the things that after COVID or during COVID in lockdown became a real challenge for couples. Yeah. So what we're saying is, go there. Anything that is difficult, if it's difficult to have the conversation about it, it's a problem already, isn't it?
Yeah, sweeping it under the carpet is not going to help.
Yeah.
So make time to have the conversations and go there. But to go there, you might require you leveling up, getting the skills to be able to go there.
Yeah.
So that when you do have the conversation, you're
it's able to... It's not an attack. You're not attacking each other.
It's a conversation just to say, this is how I'm feeling. This is the impact on me. And in fact, if you can use I language, it's always very helpful. This is how I'm feeling here. I'm not blaming you or anything. I'm just saying this is how this leaves me feeling.
And how can we do it differently?
How can we do it differently
next time?
To get a different result? So do not sweep them under the carpet. That's a big mistake. It might make you feel better for a minute or a moment or a short while, but the tension is just going to build. It's not going to go away by itself. It's not going to come out from under the carpet all by itself and disappear.
I just had a thought. Sweeping things under the carpet is literally making a mountain out of a molehill, because the more you're sweeping under the carpet, you're creating a mountain. Absolutely. And a distance between you.
Yeah, so don't do that one. don't sweep it under the carpet and think it's just they're not going to be a problem. It's a big mistake. You do want to address these things. Find the right time. If it's, you have to have those conversations.
You might have to diarize it.
You might have to diarize it.
For busy professionals, that's the challenge, isn't it? You don't have time. And if it's hard to talk about, it's easier to just not go there. Yeah. So, diarize it.
And of course, if somebody is just come off a very tense situation and very stressed and so on, and you now then say, okay, well, let's have this. We need to have this conversation about this. Chances are it's not going to go very well, that conversation. So time it right. Look for the right time. You probably think there's never the right time. So I'm not saying look for the perfect time, but look for a good time, at least a time where you think you can have a good conversation, and then go for it. Get the skills, have those conversations. Really important to do that.
And when you say get the skills, you're talking about the skills that we talk about in having how do you have a courageous conversation.
Absolutely. And how do you level up? How do you build your relational intelligence? How do you have those conversations?
Yeah.
You've got to be able to do that. You've got to be able to sense when it's right. You've got to be able to know which questions to ask. How to ask those questions, when to ask those questions, all part
of... How to manage the emotions, how to listen well, how to clarify the goals so that you stay focused on
how to recognize when you're coming on too strong or pushing too much, to say, we need to address this one now.
Yeah.
All that.
That's a whole section that we talk about in the book and on the course, which is
and I'm sure
really
we'll touch on through more of these sessions as well
Absolutely.
as we go through.
Number four.
Number four.
And number four is about conflict, which kind of marries with sweeping things under the carpet. And the point is, as busy professionals, for any of us, when we're under stress or when we're in a hurry, our default behavior isn't the best. We're more harsh than gentle. We're more selfish than kind. And so the way that things come out under stressful situations or when it moves into a conflict situation, we won't turn up well unless we are very intentional about learning to turn up better, no matter how strong the pressure is, and be the person we'd like to be in the moment. And that takes a lot of unlearning of old behaviors and habits, because most of us, a lot of people, just don't like to have conflict at all. It's easier to avoid it. Usually because of conflict done badly.
But when it does happen, the mistake to avoid is avoid handling it selfishly. And it's easy to say, but our default, psychologists have shown that when conflict arises, there are typically 4 ways in which most of us tend to handle it. Each of us has one particular way. Of those 4, there's usually one of those 4 that we tend to do time and time and time again. And those 4 very quickly are, we either in a conflict situation try to win, whatever the argument is or the disagreement or whatever. We go in saying, my way is the right way, you must go along with me kind of thing. And if you think about it, if you're going with that approach every time that in a conflict situation you need to win, well, where does that leave the other person? It means they need to lose. Where do you think that leaves them feeling? Probably not great, not very good.
And the thing is, depending on the personality that you have, and if you're very logical and we like to say you drink your own Kool-Aid, you really believe that your way is the right way and that's the only possible way you can see. And that becomes a problem.
And I was going to say, sadly, interestingly for us, both of us have that natural default. So both of us go into these situations, conflict situations, thinking, I want to win, she wants to win. But who's going to win?
Here's the other thing that we say, that we really struggle to know the difference between our opinion and facts.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. My opinion is fact. My opinion is fact. I don't know about yours. That's how we think.
Yeah.
That's how we think. So we need to recognize, actually, it is selfish. It's great for you, but it's not great for the relationship. What else can you be doing? So that was one example. The second way is, again, psychologists have shown that people tend to handle conflict is they go in looking to negotiate, to barter, to compromise. And you might think, well, what's wrong with negotiation? Is how most business things are handled. Yeah. There's a great example you have, isn't there, that shows...
story. Yeah, so there's this one story of a father with 2 sons, and there was this small, like a cupcake that they needed to share. And so the first son said, Dad, can I cut it? Can I cut the cake? And the dad, very shrewd, very wise response. He said, yep, you can cut the cake, but your brother will get to choose the first piece. And you can just imagine the precision to cut that cake in exactly half so that, the one cutting it didn't lose out, since the other one would choose. And that's what we do.
And that is exactly the point there. Ultimately, it is still a selfish approach. You're still trying to, even in negotiations, the whole point is you're trying to give as little as possible, keep as much for yourself as possible to get the result. You're not saying, take it all, I'm cool with that. No, what you're saying is, how much more? Do you need a little bit more? Okay, I'll give you a little bit more if I can get to keep this. Oh, that's not good enough. I'll give you a little bit more. So it's still ultimately selfish.
Yeah.
The third way a lot of us approach conflict is we go for a peaceful life. And we say, okay, you know what? I'm going to give in. I'll give in on this one. Life's too short, whatever. I'm just going to give in on this one. And again, you might think, well, what's wrong with that? Well, what's wrong with that is you give in and you give in and you give in to the point where you just say, you know what, I'm not giving in anymore.
Yeah, well, we met somebody who ended up leaving the marriage because of that, just tired of always having to give in.
Yeah, and again, it's akin to the point we made earlier, which is about sweeping things under the carpet. It's just, at some point, it explodes or you implode. It just, the pressure builds. So you don't want to leave that one. Again, that's another...
But it's that point.
It is selfish. The point I was going to make, sorry, just to close that one there. It is still selfish because it's about doing what's comfortable for me. You know what? In this situation, I'll just do what feels right. I'm just going to give in and let you have it. But actually, there's a long-term problem coming with that. Sorry.
No, I was going to say it's related to the previous point. If you find you're in a relationship where you always have to give in or you feel forced to give in, it's like there's no space for you to have an opinion or a different perspective or do things your way. So nobody likes to live that way.
And then the fourth way, again, back to the psychologist research, the fourth way that people tend to handle conflict, and a certain personality type tends to do this one, is again going for a peaceful life, but it's about withdrawing, removing themselves from the situation.
Yeah,
it's just saying there's too much conflict here. I can't handle this one. See ya. I'm off. Now, it's not necessarily that they're abandoning the relationship, although that can be the message that's communicated. But it's more, I can't process when this conflict is happening around me, all this stuff's going on. My brain just can't work. I feel fried.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. Yeah. I just need to remove myself from the situation for a little while. Then maybe we can have a conversation later. But for now, this is just too much. So again, it is selfish. It's about me doing what feels right for me for now and taking myself out of there. So none of those are helpful. Success actually comes from developing an approach to conflict that is, rather than being me-centered, being selfish, it's us-centered. It's about the relationship. It's about we. It's about what's the best thing for us in this relationship. With this conflict situation that we're facing now, what is an outcome that is best for the relationship? Yeah. And that's not an easy thing to do. But it requires, firstly, a mindset that, one, I know that when conflict arises, I'm going to be selfish. So I need to manage that. And stop. For me, I know I'm a winner. I like to win. Okay, stop.
Recognize when you're trying to win too much.
Okay, I recognize I'm trying to win here. Actually, stop. What can I do that is the best thing for the relationship? That's a win-win solution where you win, I win, the relationship wins. How do I do that?
And it really is about unlearning bad habits because the deep into our brain for self-preservation, but doesn't really work for relationships.
Absolutely.
If there's any area we really need to be investing the time to learn to do it well, it's this whole area of how do we turn up in conflict, because it's hardwired in our brains and we need to unlearn the bad habits that damage the relationships and then learn new habits, new behaviors, which might feel very foreign at first, but through practice will become our default so that we can hear each other better and make space to have a better conversation and get a better result with both of you on the same side facing the problems rather than both of you facing each other with a problem in the middle, which is how we tend to do conflict. Yeah.
So number 4 was stop or avoid handling conflict selfishly. Remember, conflict is going to happen. So the sooner you learn the skills to handle it effectively and handle it well, the better. Yeah. So you need to learn to do that. Now, there are lots and lots of resources out there on how to handle conflict effectively. As you might imagine, we also have some resources. We recommend them to you. But the point is, whatever you do something. Yeah. Learn the skills to manage conflict effectively because it's going to happen. You want to be ready for it. Otherwise, those little things are what will do. Conflict handled badly will take chunks out of each other's emotional bank account. Yeah. You want to handle it well so that you're not taking those chunks out of the emotional bank account and keeping the relationship in positive territory. So learn to handle conflict well. Avoid that mistake of handling it selfishly.
Yeah.
So that was number 4.
Are we up to number 5 then? Okay, so number 5 is around not valuing or actually undervaluing other people's priorities. Yeah. And again, it's related to this very, I'm at the center of the universe, I'm at the center of the world, which by the way,
it's all about me.
Yeah, and we need to explain that, our brains are wired to help us survive and thrive. And to filtering all this information coming at us all the time, it just naturally defaults to is it going to help me survive? Is it going to help me thrive? So that puts us at the center of every conversation. And it takes a lot of emotional intelligence, relational intelligence to be able to say it isn't just about me, especially when you're in a couple relationship where you want to show love, be there, have a genuinely strong relationship of mutual support and trust with somebody else. So to do life with another person, you need to overcome this inbuilt survival selfishness approach. And not being able to hear what's important to somebody you care about is really not loving them well. Because when you undermine or you judge or you make them feel like what's important to them isn't that important because it's not important to you. You're basically shutting them down emotionally. And that can create huge resentment because we all want to be seen, known, heard.
That's
loved.
the word I was going for. We all want to be heard. Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to have a voice.
And it's not just hearing your words, but hearing your heart.
Yeah.
And if you can't share the things that are important to you or the things that you're passionate about or feel it's going to be judged or undermined in any way, you're really shutting people down from the soul. That's a big lockout.
An important point there to make, though, is not that just because you're heard, everybody has to agree with you.
Yeah.
But at least you want to be heard. Everybody wants the voice. Now, equally, if every time they're heard, they're shut down, that's not really helpful.
Especially when you're talking about things that are important to them. So that's the difference.
Exactly.
Where, listening is a whole other skill area on its own.
Maybe we'll get somebody in to talk about that.
Yeah.
I think so. I've got somebody in mind.
I think I know who. Yeah, that's a very good
We won't share names until they're in here, but I think we've got a particular master in listening who I think will be excellent and do a great job in sharing some insights.
But the nuance to this, the thing that's really important here is to be able to hear somebody's heart and not judge it, but respect the fact that if that's important to them, it's something that's a priority for them. That's something you need to pay attention to. Whether or not it's a priority or important to you, if it's important to them, then it's a matter of the heart. And you don't want to shut them down.
Exactly right.
Treat it as important and really take the time to understand the why. Yeah. Not to kind of challenge them on it, but to really understand it so you can respect it and support them in it if it's something that's important to them. It could be a hobby. It could be a career. It could be something that challenge that they want to do with their life, climb Kilimanjaro. It doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be explained. It just needs to be heard. Yeah. And you give you.
But interesting, you take that as an example. I've mentioned it to other people. Clearly not to you. You were very supportive. Mentioned it to other people, and they'd be like, "Why do you want to do that for?" Sort of dismissive of it. Well, it's actually something I'd like to do. I wasn't asking permission. I was just sharing with you what's something I'd like to do. Who are you to judge it?
Yeah.
And if we keep doing that with the people around us, they mention something that's important to them, and we kind of dismiss it or judge it, or what message is that communicating to them? Certainly not communicating that you care about them.
Yeah. Well, if it's in a couple relationship, I love that song. I'm your greatest cheerleader, and that's who I want to be. I want to be your cheerleader.
There you go. There you go. Me too. There you go.
If it's something that's important to you, then I'll be your cheerleader and help you to achieve that. I was going to talk about piano. That's why you're learning to play the piano, isn't it? Well, that's it. So,
the story there is our children both learned to play the piano as children. They're big people now, but as children they learned to play the piano. And I used to watch them and go, I'd like to do that one day. Busy, but I haven't made the time for it, etc. And then was it during COVID, or a couple of years ago now? Was it 2-3 years ago? Yeah. Andrea said to me, "So John, when exactly is this one day that you're going to learn the piano?" So she'd clearly heard my interest in my heart that I wanted to play the piano. And she booked some lessons for me, and there you go. I started on that journey.
Yeah.
Doing my lessons. I'm doing the whole classical route for now.
Got to grade 2, passed grade 2.
I'm on to grade 3 now.
Grade 3.
It's hard work at this stage in life. I tell you, it's blooming hard work. But we're getting there. We're moving forward. I'm enjoying it. And see where we go on that journey. And it's about hearing the heart and what's important.
Yeah, and I just want to say here, it sounds like we have all of this down pat and we get it right. A lot of what we're sharing is because we've gotten it wrong in the past, gotten it so wrong sometimes, and had to learn how to do it right, or realize that these were the things that became real sticking points, real stumbling blocks for us that we had to learn how to get over. And it's from that place of having done it wrong that we want to share these tips and insights.
Yeah, and I guess just to make a point there on relational intelligence, it's not saying that life will be completely plain sailing and you will never have any challenges or hurdles once your relational intelligence is up there. It's an ongoing learning exercise.
Yeah.
What it does mean, though, is every time you face a challenge, you will look on it as just that, a challenge. How do I get over this challenge? How do I conquer this thing? How do we move on from here and keep the relationship intact through it and over it? So the challenges will continue to come. All you'll be doing here is building the muscle, building the skills, building the habits that will help you get over these challenges as and when they arise.
Yeah. So we're up to number 6 now?
Number 6. So what was number 6? Number 6 was looking at, quality time. Quality time together. The mistake that most busy professionals do is they don't prioritize quality time together. The mindset or the thinking is, I'm busy, you're there, you'll be there, let me just get this done and then we'll spend some time together.
Yeah.
The reality is that quite often doesn't happen. I'm busy doing this, and then I'm busy doing this, and then something else comes up and I'm busy doing this. And actually, well, I know I said I'm coming, but I'm coming. Wait for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that person will wait, and they'll wait, and they'll wait. But at some point, the message is communicated that actually, you know what? You're really not that important to me. This is more important. Now, the reality is, I don't think most of us think like that, but that's the message that we're communicating, that actually this thing here, this message has just come through on my phone, this diary thing, this thing to do, this email, whatever it is so much more important than you. Yeah, it's important. Don't get me wrong there. But is it more important than you? No. So the message needs to be communicated. It's a fine one to balance, but the message needs to be communicated that actually you're more important. And at some point, you need to say, okay, actually, if you can prioritize it so that, yes, I know I've got these things coming through onto my in-tray inbox, whatever it is, but there's time coming that I've allocated for you, and that time is ring-fenced for you, then at least you know that time is coming.
Yeah.
So yes, I've got these things coming through. When that time comes, I'm going to do it. And if that time comes and I'm not able to do it then at least we know there's that slot that's moving and we just need to find another time. And then it's my responsibility to make sure that lands at some point. So I can't keep you on perma hold. It can't be hold forever. But at some point, you've got to have your time.
Well, they say, don't they, that your diary and your bank account
absolutely
will do. If you want to know what you really prioritize, it will be reflected in your diary and your bank account. And that's why one of the things we've had to learn to do is to schedule in our diary, plan our schedules based on our values and not on our to-do list, because the to-do list is insatiable.
It will always be there.
It will always be there. But the other thing that I can't remember who said it, some wise person, one of the authors that we read, said the way that you respond to an interruption shows you the level of your relationship skills and how you're valuing the people around you. So, two things to bear in mind there. But the point is...
Well, do you want to share that experience that you had of the way that you respond in that conference you were at?
Yes.
That was an amazing experience.
It was an amazing experience.
Example of that.
So I was at a conference, maybe 250, 300 people in the room, speaker at the front in the classic presentation layout. And as the speaker was sharing his wisdom, we just noticed this little 7-year-old girl. Mm-hmm. Everybody noticed her because it was not the environment for children. It was, an adult business meeting. And so all eyes looked at this little 7-year-old girl walking up the side, heading up to where the speaker was. And everybody was watching to see what would happen. What would the speaker do? And you know what? It still moves me. Without losing a beat in his presentation, he just reached down, scooped her up in his arms, and continued with the presentation, simultaneously being a very present dad and a very professional speaker. Yeah. And that's what we mean about the way that we behave, showing value to the people, making time for people. And we found out afterwards that she was there. She was actually unwell. He knew that. He knew the context and just didn't let it disturb him being a professional. He was able to
easily have said, no, go back, stand there, wait until the end, whatever.
Yeah.
But he chose that the important relationship was important. I can still do my job and maintain a relationship at the same time.
Do you remember the video that went viral with this BBC reporter?
Oh, yes.
The interview. I can't remember
anyway.
Robert somebody.
Yes, there you go.
Bless him, poor thing. But it went viral because he was being interviewed by the BBC. One child came in, then the other child, and he just kept trying to push the personal out of the professional.
Please leave me alone, I'm being professional.
When, it all went pear-shaped, and then the wife had to come in and take the children and tried to be off camera, was fully on camera and so on. Anyway, we digress. What we're saying is making quality time, ring-fencing time for the people who are important to you is as important an activity, making that time and space in your diary, as is making time for focus work. It's not either or. They need to have time there, or else, this is how you end up growing apart. This is how you end up with distance in the relationship. 25 years pass. The busyness of life has calmed down because children have flown the nest, and you look at each other, you don't know each other anymore because you've lost that time for meaningful conversation, heart to heart.
Absolutely. So those are the top 6. Number 7, equally important, maybe most important, is around meeting emotional needs. You want to pick us up on that one?
Yeah, we kind of assume that the way we feel loved, the way we feel that sense of security, that sense of belonging, the way we feel valued and appreciated is the same way that our partner will feel it. And so we speak love and do things in a way that, say things or do things in a way that we would like to hear love, value, appreciation being expressed.
Because that's the right way for love, value, appreciation to be expressed, right? That's what we think. We think it's because this what means something to me.
Then it means something.
It means something to everybody else.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah. And so the key, so we end up.
Or it might not. They might be very similar to you, but equally they might be quite different.
But the thing is, for the years we've been doing this, it's very rare that a couple have what we call love languages or appreciation languages.
We call them. Gary Chapman, to be fair. Gary Chapman's work, you've come across him, the 5 love languages. He also has the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace.
Yeah.
It's very similar. They're the same languages, essentially, slightly different expressions, as you might imagine. Sometimes how you feel in a home relationship, how you feel special in a home relationship might be different to how you feel special in a work relationship. Valued, but it's the same principles.
And this was a big lesson for us, wasn't it? Because we kept missing each other emotionally, where we were each doing things or saying things or showing affection and appreciation in ways that we thought were important, and it just wasn't landing at all for the other person. Do you want to share any examples?
Happy to. Well, example. I'm going to share just very quickly what the languages are. So very quickly, there are words of affirmations, words of praise. There is acts, which is doing things for people. There is quality time. We've spoken about that one, which is spending quality time with a person. There is gifts, and there is touch. Mm-hmm. The 5th one, you can see that one is not my one. That's why I dropped to the bottom of the gifts and touch dropped to the bottom of the list because they're not mine. So there are different ways in which we all feel special. The key thing here is to firstly identify what yours are, and then so know what they are, and if you can communicate that to your spouse or partner, what makes you feel special, great. That's a great start. But once you've done that, actually you want to forget about that. That's interesting. What your job is to identify what your partner's is. Your spouse or your partner, what are their languages of appreciation, and in a home context. In a work context, you can do that as well. What are their languages of appreciation? But in a home context, what is theirs? You need to learn that, and then you need to start speaking that language. You need to get fluent in it. It needs to be mother tongue. If you can make it mother tongue to you, so much the better. Because what that means then is every time you speak and you communicate, you are pouring out love. You're showing love in a way that means something to them, not to you.
Yeah.
If they're doing the same thing back to you in your language, happy days. Then it's all great. But your job is to identify what their languages are if they've got more than one, and then start speaking those. And the thing to avoid, the mistake that most people do is, one, they have no idea about the idea that languages are different. And the mistake to avoid is speaking your language and speaking it loudly, assuming that the other person is going to feel special when you do that.
And it leaves you very vulnerable, doesn't it? To somebody else speaking love or showing love in a way that lands powerfully with you. It leaves you vulnerable to being pulled in that direction.
And it leaves you vulnerable unintentionally. So if you think about it like this, if somebody has a particular need that they need to have filled, an emotional need, and you, their spouse or partner, isn't speaking their language to them, so you're not filling their bucket. So they're feeling drained, they're feeling empty. And then all of a sudden, or gently in the background somewhere, somebody else starts pouring some water into that bucket and filling their bucket. They didn't mean to, but they now all of a sudden find themselves attracted to that person over there who is pouring love into their bucket. So they didn't set out looking for this, but you've left their bucket empty and dry. And so they're now hungry or thirsty for something else to fill that bucket, or something to fill that bucket. If you could fill it, happy days. But if you're not doing that, you have left them vulnerable. So I guess in a responsibility land, you need to take a bit of responsibility for that. What you need to be doing is filling that bucket rather than allowing somebody else to fill that bucket. Because if you don't, then the attraction, as you can see, will start to build. Because it's a need that they have to feel valued, to feel special, to feel appreciated.
So, and I mean, we all have that. We all have this deep need to feel seen, known, heard, and loved.
Yeah.
And it's the danger of getting it wrong as well. So, for example, quality time is a huge deal for John. That's
absolutely.
one of his. Is that your primary love language?
Yeah, I think so.
Number one. And I was getting it wrong because, let's say we're going on a journey, driving up north, 2, 3 hour, 4 hour drive. That time in the car together in John's head was wonderful quality time for us to talk and connect. But I didn't appreciate this at the time. And so I would go in the car thinking, okay, I have some messages to send, some emails to check. This is with John driving. I can catch up on, admin technology because we're together. And isn't that okay?
Sitting there thinking, wait a minute, I'm not the blooming chauffeur here. What's going on?
So what I was going to say is the resentment that can build when, one, you're not getting love shown to you in the way that's important to you. And two, you're doing the reverse, meaning, I might be on the phone with somebody else, giving somebody else that quality time. And so you're not getting it and you're seeing somebody else get it. If ever you notice somebody reacting in a way that is disproportionate, it's like overreacting in how upset they are, just check whether or not, one, you're not speaking love to them in a way that they really need it, and two, you're doing the opposite of it, which is like a double whammy that can cause some real deep upset that comes out, in a kind of a unexpected way.
Yeah. So there you are. Those are the 7 mistakes.
So those are the 7 to avoid. Shall we just run through? So our partner's not in our head, so they're not. Don't expect them to be mind readers. Drop the criticism. Just stop yourself. Check the narrative in your head. If there's any criticism or contempt, those are huge danger signs. Look for the strength and the difference, because there's a reason why they're doing things differently.
Don't sweep things under the carpet.
Correct.
Number 3, avoid doing that. Have those conversations, open conversations.
Yeah, don't create no-go areas in the relationship. Be able to talk about everything and get the skills to be able to talk about everything.
Number 4, manage conflict. Manage conflict effectively.
Huge skill to learn on
it's going to happen.
Unlearn bad habits.
Unlearn bad habits. Don't be selfish in conflict resolution.
Well, I think a better way to say that is know that your tendency is to be selfish and learn how to not be selfish.
Yeah, recognize, be self-aware, recognize what you're doing, how you're coming across. It's not helpful. Do something better.
But it's going to happen. Learn to hear and value other people's priorities. Don't undervalue things that are important to them, especially when they dare to open up their heart. Otherwise, you'll shut them down and create real resentment there.
Number 6, avoid keeping them on perma hold.
Yes.
Make that time, make quality time for each other. Invest in the relationship. Make that time for the connection. Very, very important.
Yep. And number 7, don't leave them empty. Don't leave them empty.
Don't leave them empty. As busy professionals, we're time poor and we are under pressure.
Yeah.
And those 2 things tend to mean that we end up making a lot of these mistakes and we do them over and over and over again.
And simultaneously, that's the other thing.
There you go.
We might be doing some of these things all at the same time.
Maybe simultaneously. So really important that we avoid these mistakes, be intentional about learning the behaviors that stop us from doing some of these things. Hopefully we've given you some practical things to do here. Things like with the focusing on a win-win solution.
Ring fencing space in the diary. Learning how to get better at talking about deep-seated issues that challenge our culture or our beliefs or our values, so that we don't sweep things under the carpet. Essentially, what we're saying in all of this is these are all the reasons why we need to build our ability, build our awareness, and build our competence in doing relationships well. And that's what we mean about building your RQ, building your relational intelligence. It's not our default. We have to be on purpose about doing it so that we can have harmony at home, thrive at work,
and win at life.
See you next time.
We hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you did, and you want to hear more, the best thing to do is subscribe. Then you'll never miss an episode. There's a new one every Friday. You can stay connected with us on social media at The 4 Habits For updates, behind-the-scenes content, and to participate in discussions related to the show. We always love to hear from you. And of course, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review on your preferred platform to allow us to reach more listeners and help people around the globe radically transform the way they do relationships so they too can enjoy better harmony at home, thrive at work, and win at life.